Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. Welcome to the panel discussion on the ultimate TV experience. My name is Danny Ledger. I'm part of the Deloitte Digital team. I guess I'm the one standing between you, cocktails, and traffic. So hopefully we'll make this a lively discussion. I think we have a great panelist here. We have folks that represent all different areas of content distribution, content production, analytics, data, platforms, marketing. It's a pretty well diverse set of folks. So we'll kick it off with a round of intros, dive into some questions, and then we'll open up for Q&A. Ron?
Hi, how y'all doing? I'm Ron Bloom. I'm a co-founder of ReachMe.tv. It's a soon-to-be global platform. It's pretty much dominant in the U.S. as a place-based or out-of-home and mobile entertainment network. We deliver content over our own platform to the top 75 airports in the United States and over about 1 million hotel rooms in 5,000 hotels, and then through synchronizing capabilities into a mobile platform. We reach about 100 million people a month with our programming. We receive programming from partners such as CBS, AOL, Fox, NBC, ABC, on and on. Soon also quite a few digital outposts, particularly in the magazine side, that are now seeking to convert their content into videos such as Billboard or Hollywood Reporter. And we have a studio here in town, a production studio on the top of the Sunset Vine Towers, the so-called tallest spot in Hollywood, where we shoot about 20–30% of the content that we put out into the market.
Hi, my name is Adam Cunningham. I'm the founder of 87AM, which is now part of Allied. We're an arts and entertainment culture direct response agency across North America, Europe, and Asia. We work for majority of the TVOD, AVOD, and SVOD major platforms around the world, whether that's in some capacity Netflix and Hulu and Amazon to the Walt Disney Company to whatever's going on in China. So I oversee all of the digital operations for the company, specifically dealing with the marketing and advertising end. So marrying customer acquisition, managing churn and attrition. So my point of view is probably going to be a little different. Mine's more from a marketing and consumer and audience angle. That's what we manage for our accounts.
I'm Barry Loudis. I'm at Turner out of Atlanta. I work in our content distribution group, and I oversee our digital distribution of our brands, as well as working with our digital platform partners to be sure we're properly activating our content and telling our stories to as many folks in the best way possible.
My name is Scott Brown. I'm with Nielsen. As you probably know, the Nielsen company is broadly based in basically two disciplines, the watch and the buy side of our businesses. We're providing metrics, performance metrics to all of our clients and customers so they can assess and evaluate properly not only content but also the trafficking of products and pharmaceuticals and so forth. I've been with the company for a long time, Senior Vice President of Engineering, so I'm really kind of focused more on engineering and solutions for measuring sort of new media as new media begins to emerge and as consolidation continues to be a huge phenomenon in this business. Over to you.
Thank you. Rob Miller. I'm Vice President of Sales for the Media and Entertainment Group at Swerve. And Swerve is a 6-year-old startup based in San Francisco and Dublin, Ireland. And my group in particular is focused on M&E because of the convergence of mobile and OTT. And in our view, there's a massive opportunity for media companies to reach their audiences now on any screen. And in our view, a screen is a screen, whether it's on your wall or in your pocket. And our tools help you maximize your opportunity to engage and grow and retain your audiences there.
Hi, my name is Jörg Bachmeier. I'm part of Machinima, what is a Warner Brothers company. We're all about gaming and fandom, all the entertainment aspect around it. We're one of the first multi-channel network across social media, YouTube, Facebook, you name it. We have around 11,000 influencers in this network. I'm specifically responsible for the other side, the premium content. So we take gaming IP and other kind IP like Transformers. We're working on a Transformers series as we speak, and turn that into TV shows for third parties, TV and digital.
Great, thank you. And just a quick background on myself. I'm Danny Ledger. I lead our Deloitte digital practice for media in the US. I'm responsible for overseeing all of our digital work across various media clients. So that's everything from technology enablement, strategy, operations, as well as some of the content creative and marketing that we do within Deloitte Digital. So why don't I kick this off? When we chatted beforehand, one of the things that kind of struck us about this topic is it's a pretty broad, diverse topic. We could take it in multiple directions. Really what we're talking about here is the future of television when it comes down to it. And so what we want to really do is kind of unpack that a little bit. What are some of the key elements, the components? How should we look at this and frame it? Is it data? Is it platforms? Is it content? Is it all of the above? So I was gonna toss this one out to Adam just to give some perspective on kind of how you view the future TV experience and what are the key elements.
Yeah, thank you. Just the biggest question ever to kick us off. No pressure. I think, simply put, the ultimate, and this is something that's been discussed, I think the ultimate TV experience, very simply put, is the ability to watch what you want to watch, when you want to watch it, how you want to watch it. I think that goes a little bit more specifically, whether you're talking about from an audience or consumer standpoint, whether you're a content provider, whether you're a network or an influencer, or a advertiser. I think from an audience standpoint, that simply means you're going to want to watch what you're going to watch. You don't really care that Amazon and Apple have not brokered the deal to watch Transparent on Apple TV. You don't particularly care that Carpool Karaoke is not available on your Android device, and you're going to have that desire to watch it exactly as you can. And the internet, as we all know, with piracy and the rest of it, has challenged content providers to have to think about what does that mean when, if you want to watch This Is Us and you're not located in the United States, there's a chance you're still going to be able to want to watch it on the internet. So when you, from a content standpoint, the content providers have to think beyond the concept of territory, because that doesn't exist in the same way anymore, and dealing with those rights. And I think on the third pillar would be an advertising standpoint. I think the ultimate TV experience for an advertiser is the ability to have what we call the upstream and the downstream data, so what they watched before and what they watched after, no matter what the platform is, and being able to tie that through some sort of hashed anonymity to a household profile. So I think very simply, the ultimate TV experience, from my point of view, is something that is entirely platform agnostic, whether you are an audience member, you're a network, content provider, or you're an advertiser.
Great, thanks. Barry, I was going to ask you just to maybe add to that from a distribution point of view, wearing your hat, how do you kind of view television expanding over the years?
And this is a good time for television, a good time for television content, and we see a big future in further distribution opportunities, right? Whether that is to the device or to the Roku box in your living room or your second bedroom or your wherever. It is about getting the story to the right people, regardless of where they are, and regardless of what services they have, right? Giving them an opportunity to watch that. So we're actively looking at all those opportunities. We've capitalized on some of them. There's plenty more to go. But yeah, it's about getting that story to the right folks, regardless of the platform or the form factor.
Great, and that's actually a good segue to my next question. You kind of alluded to this about consumer choice, right? And consumers having options to view content how they want, where they want, when they want. And we all know, unless you're living under a rock these days, that a lot of the viewing audiences are shifting towards streaming services, especially younger generations, the Gen Zs and the millennials. And some of our Deloitte research has actually said that over 50% of the Gen Z and millennial viewing time is now on non-traditional devices, so streaming devices, platforms. So Jorg, just from your perspective, MCN and having multiple content and reach, love to kind of get your thoughts on how you're embracing this change.
Well, first I think this definition of television needs a new definition. It's a millennial doesn't, in my eyes, I don't have the crystal ball. Deloitte has probably more stats than we do, but you don't distinguish between mobile, PC, laptop, or television these days. It's a multi-screen environment. Screens are exploding every second, pretty much, as we speak. But there are challenges, of course, specifically in funding and business models, and how do you fund, big. And I agree with you. There's a golden age of drama, specifically. I wouldn't even say TV, really drama across multiple platforms. But how do you fund all this? In a more and more fragmented, hyper-fragmented world of all these different OTT, SVOD/TV, cable, pay TV choices. So we definitely embrace it. And I think it's more positive than negative, because there are lots more outlets where you can place your premium content. But the challenges are also obvious with this fragmentation, with platforms don't know how they position themselves, where they don't know exactly what the length of content is because they haven't figured it out entirely. So there's still lots of learnings from good old television. If you want linear television, again, the definition has to be different these days.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, so we talked about consumers and choice and their expectations shifting, and how do we look at what we want to do for them? Do we want to change their expectations and drive that conversation, or is it something that we're going to do differently in the way we operate? So, Barry,
Danny, I have a thought to share on that subject, just real quick.
go ahead.
I don't want to throw you off your
Hey,
schedule
this is your world. I'm just living it.
Oh, no, I just wanted to throw in that on this topic, I mean, the fact is we have the capability and we have the data now to predict, perhaps, what it is I would want to see. Or based on my habits on my phone, I should be able to, plunk down on my couch at night and have something spoon-fed to me, more or less, on my television, which is what I used to use television for in the old days, right? And as opposed to having to search for content or, go out of my way to beam my phone to my TV set. I do feel like we are on the cusp with the right tools and with all the content we're talking about creating to be able to have a very good chance of putting in front of Rob the drama he wants to watch, the football game he wants to see, et cetera.
I think the only counter I would say, because I think you're 100% right, I think, and not to be the entertainment socialist up here, but as long as the content providers also control the distribution platform and the medium, I think we're going to have a restriction there, because at the end of the day, it's not a full picture of the data of what you want to see. It's basically what have you I mean, looking at Apple's very intelligent TV app that is plugged into everybody's OTT, yet it's completely restrictive. You don't really get all the Hulu data. You don't have any of the Netflix data.
It may not span platforms. I mean, it may be very Hulu specific or very Apple specific, for sure.
And I think that's going to be the challenge in a couple of years to have to solve, because at some point Apple should, or NBC, we'll use them as an example, should be most concerned about creating content to reach the right audience. I think even the fact that Netflix has House of Cards and Orange is the New Black is great and wonderful, and that made them stand out against HBO when they needed to. But more importantly, I think the more interesting story of Netflix is the beautifully resourced and produced niche things like Chef's Table and Abstract, which prove with the right audience data into a household, or Machinima, I think, probably has a lot of probably a point of view on that. I mean, being niche content, being able to directly go in.
Because we do exactly that. We have a business intelligence team. Sounds very formal and dry, but they're really geniuses. They really look into social talk, so not just views, view numbers, and find out what do their fans really want at the very end. And authenticity is, even in a weird way, more important these days than screen value or production value. It's equally important that you tell a great story. Without good content, you're nowhere. But if you're not authentic to this fan base and you don't speak to them and they feel, oh, I'm just a consumer and they just want to get my money, then you will lose anyway. And this is where I think data and business intelligence helps you a lot to get you on the right track. Are they really interested in that or not? And then you have to make your own choice, what you feel is the voice of tone, in our case of Machinima, and fits right in.
I think that it's easy when you're in technology to overlook what has gone before what we have now. I mean, television is some of the most dramatically intensively researched platform in the history of media. And just because it didn't occur digitally or just because it wasn't in real time, it has no less value. I think that if you look at the cycles of innovation, what normally happens is there's this thing that everybody used to call disintermediation, where things break down and everybody goes in a direction and explores new things, and then sort of reintermediation, where everybody sort of reaggregates and finds their path. So I think today we're actually on the cusp of, I think we're kind of moving beyond I want to watch what I want to watch when I want to watch it, into a world of what did you watch last night, and what are you looking at, and what are other people looking at? And I think it's the same emotional drivers that have been driving it since the dawn of media. It's just that we have a few extra sort of technical means, and so we're on this connected platform and we get data bouncing around. But I think the real place, the fundamental place to break the mold is in formats. So what we are seeing is that the viewing habit of modern viewers, doesn't mean millennials, I'm kind of an anti-millennial, but the viewing habits of modern viewers are just changed, and they don't consume it in the same way. And I think television is a little behind because they're restricted by the 30-minute and 60-minute format barrier. I think that's the thing that's going to break, that's going to take traditional television networks into the next level. That means they have to learn how to monetize in a shorter form. The entire business infrastructure of monetization has to change. I think we're kind of near that. And when we get there, then you're going to see OTT and all these, I don't know if anyone here, I'm assuming kind of most everybody knows what OTT is, but if you go outside of this room and you ask pretty much any regular person, millennial or not, they're kind of going to head scratch because it doesn't mean anything to anybody. So all of us here who have these technical platforms, we are the vessels for which the next generation of content is going to find its way. It's not going to be any less promoted, not going to be any less marketed. It's going to require the same infrastructure that TV built over time. I think we're just in the beginning of the change to the way it's sort of delivered and monetized. And I think that the most important thing for creators to realize is it's not a 30 or a 60 or a 90. It's a new form and format. And once everybody catches that flame, we're going to have the most amazing renaissance in content. We haven't even begun to see how that's going to change.
That's great. So you touched on content already. I was going to go there next, but that's great. What about services? With all this noise in the system around bundling and unbundling and skinny bundling, and how do you guys look at the opportunities in new and innovative products and services? Is that content driven, or is that something else? Maybe Barry, I'll toss that to you.
Well, we love our networks on as many platforms, and I shouldn't say networks. We love our stories being on every platform possible and every package possible. We've been very fortunate in the skinny bundles as they've come out and become a little bit more regular. People know what the skinny bundle is at this point. And the virtual MVPDs, with a couple of exceptions, and that's okay. We'll get there. But yeah, we welcome that change. We're fortunate at Turner. We have 8 of top 50 cable channels at this point, and our VOD consumption is going through the roof. We have new content coming online, everything from a new 240 game package with UEFA, which is European Soccer League, to stuff coming up from Super Deluxe and things we put on TBS and TNT. So we're very pleased with that, and we welcome these new opportunities to get our content out there.
Yeah, that's great. And then I guess I'll toss this to Rob and Adam. You guys could maybe riff on this a little bit, because I think with all the different OTT platforms and different offerings and different bundles and unbundled, it's a crowded, noisy market. It's hard to attract, retain customers. And what do you guys see out there as trends, challenges, opportunities?
I'm going to let Adam go first this time.
All right. Where to begin?
Yeah, and the tail of your question was
just around the challenges around customer acquisition
and
retention primarily, and how do you stand out in a crowded market?
It would be, for my end, it would be content, and shocking that I'm going to say this, proliferation on platform. I think one of the smarter moves of some of the early OTT platforms was no one really kind of underestimated what it was, and they got bundled into every single piece of manufacturing. They got into every little offering you could. I think the biggest issue at this point is, we used to think it was going to be age and demo, but we have niche OTT providers that we work for where I can tell you, a year ago they were at 20,000 subs and now they're at 1 million subs, and their audience demographic is women 65 plus. So even kind of the technological barriers that we assume that were going to be in place and the issues of conversion, I think those have been a bit overstated, and we've seen that if the content is there and it's easy enough to convert towards it. The other part of it that we always have to manage, which is tough, is churn and attrition. We know, at least from our end qualitatively, I wonder if you have different data, but from most of our major networks that we work with, we know that the Apple customer, for instance, is a far more valuable customer from a financial standpoint, but there's more scale available on the Android platforms. But the churn on Google platforms, if you convert them through those systems, is much larger. So they have a higher propensity of cancellation. So even managing those kind of things, and was interesting, one anecdote I'll throw to you on that is we were meeting with a major newspaper about their subscriptions, and they ended up talking through their entire models of what they call net present value, which is how they make their money on subscription, and then managing that churn and that attrition. And it became a really valuable lesson of how a newspaper has always managed that question of subscription and churn, and it's very deeply applicable to the OTT business, because it's all well and good if you get 1 million subs, but if 40% of them drop off every single month, then it doesn't matter. So, yes, your turn.
Yeah, I think there's nothing controversial in there.
No, there wasn't.
No, Yeah, the data has been out there for a while, right? That Apple, iOS users, right, have more value, maybe more minutes streamed. They spend more money when they're in a subscription sort of scenario. But the penetration of devices like Roku is just greater, and Android devices, of course. So you have to. So that comes back to my answer to the question, which is very similar to what you were saying. You need to have a good acquisition strategy. You probably need an agency. No, you do need an agency like 87am, for example, to help you pull that together. You like that plug? No, but I sincerely believe that. You also need good technology that will tell you what's working or what's not, and that technology is going to give you some data. It's going to let you know things like what's your app store rating like. I mean, now even Apple has an app store for their OTT device for the Apple TV, and if you're not rated highly, it's going to be harder for people to find you. So build a good app to begin with, and then have a good strategy to get users on it. And the other thing I'll say is, part of that will be an acquisition strategy around, paid media spend. Are you going to go across Facebook? Are you going to go across more traditional advertising channels to bring people in? And keeping that cost down as low as possible is really important to those companies that might be pure play OTT and are only 20,000 subs today and need to be 1 million in a year to justify their existence. And one thing you can do also to help preserve that experience and that audience base that you're paying to bring in is make the first time user experience, or FTUE as we call it, really high quality. Bring people into content that they want to see based on data you may have available to you, and make sure that when they're there, you show them how to use the app. Not everyone thinks that these apps are that intuitive, and so I download apps every day, whether we're talking to people or not, and sort of look at them and think, wow, if I was, I'm not young anymore, but if I wasn't 20 years old, would I be able to use this app? Would I be able to find and discover content? Would I be able to stream the media that I want? Because if you don't have a good experience your first time, chances are you're not coming back.
And not to go too in the weeds on this, but to go on top of that point, which is a big one, is the issue of discoverability. If you think about the media companies, before, essentially media companies obviously create great content, they've got to market that, but they have a lot of business traditionally with the distributors and the cable networks. And now with OTT and streaming, a lot of these networks are now in a very direct one-to-one B2C relationship now with customers. So CBS making the decision to launch CBS All Access, a direct-to-consumer platform for I think $5.99 a month or whatever it is. That's a big issue. So now you've got entertainment marketers who aren't necessarily technologists who have to market these platforms, and the technology people in the networks don't necessarily know how to market entertainment. So, for instance, one of the most common issues we see for discoverability with any of our networks, or a lot of them, is the issue of data decay. And this is I don't mean to get too in the weeds here, but one of the biggest issues is a lot of the time the retention of what we call the UDID, which is your household IP address, which connects to your iPhone, your iPad, whatever you watch on. A lot of those people lose that data after 30 days. So after 30 days, they have no idea if they've retained this customer, they've lost this customer, it's a churn. So it's a very interesting time to be in the space, because entertainment marketers are having to go more towards the technology space, and technology people who just think about SDK and analytics and churn and attrition and all that kind of good stuff are now having to think through, like, how do I position content in the most discoverable way possible. So it's a little in the weeds, but I did want to make the discoverability point, which is what you were saying is incredibly important. And now it's on the impetus of the media company, not just the distribution channel, and that's a major shift in entertainment.
How do we track that?
How do we track what?
That's a good transition, actually. So we're going to tee up a data question here. So, we've talked a lot about data, and I think the volume of data that we're now collecting across these devices is introducing a lot of complexity in all of our lives, right? How do we manage that? How do we make it actionable? How do we measure the overall health of our business? So I think Nelson probably has something to say about that, and Scott. So I'd love to get your perspective on how you're seeing data being used more strategically to drive value for.
Sure. Our business has morphed radically in the last 10 years. 10 years ago, I would sit on panels and we'd talk and speculate about long tail and how that was going to get measured, and we'd talk a little bit about the impact of DVRs and whether it would kill commercial television or not, and it didn't, and it won't. And here we are today, and it's a completely different world of going from measuring large slices of viewing to now very, very minute slivers of viewing, making it much more challenging, and almost everything's becoming long tail, ironically, in one fashion of looking at the problem. We still subscribe to and still build measurement panels, so we still have people cooperating with us. We put microprocessors on their TVs, we capture what they're tuning to. We still measure the demographics using a people meter device. All of that works, and it gives us age sex breaks, which are still key to the industry. linear television still pays all the bills. It really and truly does. However, a lost linear dollar cannot be easily made up on the digital side. So digital has not been fully monetized yet. It's coming. We're working a lot to monetize digital, so our business has morphed in many ways. Larger panel sizes. We've moved into measuring digital, utilizing SDKs and enabling our clients to embed our SDK measurement solutions into their apps. We work with transcoders so that our codes and watermarks and signatures and so forth can be carried. And what we're finding is we're measuring on a census basis now for a lot of digital platforms and providing really key information. So we've got products such as DAR, which is digital ad ratings, digital content ratings. So regardless of the ad load, here's the performance of the content. Whether it's the commercial content, whether it's the program vehicle you're interested in, we're providing all of that. More recently, we moved into streaming, to touch on the key point of this panel. We've got 1,000 homes right now that we're measuring streaming, and we're kind of coming up with some interesting information. About 12% of total viewing is going to streaming sources. About 48% of that 12% is undeniably Netflix. Big surprise. So the usage patterns are changing. The younger audiences are all moving to streaming. That's their preferred mode. And so our method and the madness that we're kind of gelling around is that we want to provide solutions to our clients no matter where the entertainment vehicle airs or plays out or is stored and viewed at a future time. We want to eliminate the parameter of time. We need to speed up our ratings to become near real time, maybe not real time, but getting closer to that is certainly something that we're thinking about. So the new generation of technology that we're deploying is intended to give us feedback much more rapidly than the overnights that people are familiar with. So morph, and we're really very, very customer directed. So we are constantly asking our customers, what is it that you need? Are we moving too fast or are we moving too slow? Half say we're moving too fast, the other half say we're moving too slow. You've heard me say this before. We're never going to get out of that game. But the fundamental is we still have to serve the clients and provide them the metrics. And we're the one company that provides that independent set of metrics that are MRC accredited, that we've got oversight, and you can trust the Nielsen brand to provide the necessary data. Now, in terms of data deals, relationships with companies, probably one of the biggest things that's changed about Nielsen is we now have relationships with very many companies. Facebook plays a huge role in providing digital demographics. So when our SDKs are operational, collecting information, we marry that with the Facebook demographics, and we're pumping out data very, very rapidly. It used to be Nielsen, basically going at it with homegrown solutions. That changed 10 years ago, and now we've got in place partnerships with many, many providers. We acquired Exalate, we've acquired Greystow, we've got DMP. We're moving to the cloud rapidly with all of our goods and services. So it's a huge transition for us. Now, what is your takeaway on all this? Nielsen's trying to be all things to all people. We'll always try to do that. But we'll also always try to provide the key metrics to help the buying and selling and the trafficking of that content and the valuation of that content and its commercial audiences in whatever form our customers ask us to produce it in. Which means we've now begun the move to a new set of metrics called total audience. So you're all familiar with C3, C7, the metrics that have driven the industry for years and years. We're not married to it. We'll continue to provide it until our clients don't want it, or until they get to the point where they're ready to move with total audience and they're comfortable enough with it to move forward for guarantees. Right now, our clients are receiving that data, and it's sort of a demonstration period. And what we have found is that the industry is moving slow when it comes to using new data metrics because there's so much at stake. The risk is high. But our data is out there in the hands of our clients, and we'll move when they ask us to move. And
Any ads on that, guys? From just to, thinking you're in the content side, distribution side,
I would say from
production side, data's a different challenge, right?
Well, it is, and it's wide, right? You can get it from very excellent sources like Nielsen. And we try to do some of the things on our own, right? And it's important for us to build the device graph for a user. Where are they taking that UDID, taking when they go to their home? What other devices do they have in their home? We can find that out now. What does that profile look like? And looking at the cross-platform metrics is really important for us when we not only have the content on there, but finding out where to go next. How do we monetize a show that someone started on their TV Everywhere app on their phone and then changed it to their television and put it on VOD from Comcast X1? That's a very hard thing to do, but with the device graph, with additional data that we are looking at a lot and trying to get more and more of and try to put some sense around it with the help of folks like Nielsen, we are trying to, capitalize on that. It's really important for the future of our distribution business because linear is a legacy at this point.
And I think it is important to note with streaming, there are two camps, right? There's SVOD and there's AVOD, subscriber video on demand, Netflix's, things like that. AVODs, which is when you authenticate with your cable provider and you watch ads, you don't pay for it. And I think that's a different question of data as well, because the metrics and the data that we care about in SVOD, whether it's revenue per customer or the cost per acquisition, whatever that might be, and how long they'll be with you is very different than the AVOD, which the questions center around the concept of lifetime value of that customer. How many ad pods do they watch? Is it, if you're authenticating to a network, are they watching original content or movies?
Right. Well, and let's break it into three. TV Everywhere is
Yeah.
part of your cable subscription,
Right.
Which you pay for, but you don't feel like you pay for, which is everybody loves that. And then the AVOD,
Yep.
like you mentioned, we have to look at that way, right? Because
Yep.
we do have that linear business, and we do see TV Everywhere as a way to get in front of more folks on, regardless of device.
And the marketing, in the military, they have two types of intelligence, theoretically speaking. They have signals intelligence, which is our equivalent, I think, up here, maybe data, and they have human intelligence, which is doing your best to understand the qualitative aspects of what makes things work. So the danger in the world that we live in, of the digital world, is that there's a lot of signal data available to us. So I think if you look at the last 50 major breakout things in movies and television, and you look at the producers and you look at the way that they were built, almost all of them, if not 100% of them, were thought in advance to be failures. So the hits of today were not looked at as hits in their genesis. These were by creative people who instinctively felt that they were onto something through some sort of personal journey to greatness. And what CBS is a partner of ours. When you speak about a CBS, you're really talking about a person. In my opinion, you're talking about Les Moonves, and Les Moonves values content, and his responsibility to his shareholders requires that there's data, requires that there's marketing, requires that he protects the sanctity of the content and it's monetized. So the food chain for creating the future of entertainment and the way entertainment reaches people requires a platform, and it requires modification of the things that go into that platform. So I think that digital Hollywood is almost a dangerous name because it's all digital, but I think that if you look at first innovation in content, so technology gives us the ability for people who couldn't compete to compete, started in the music business and now it's in film and television. So you don't have a distinguishing benchmark against something that costs this much and this much, machinima as an example. And the next is, once it's rolling, once there's a spark lit, the bigger companies have the capability to blast that spark worldwide really quickly and turn the beginning of something that's big into something that's giant. So in the future, we're going to see the large networks have the advantage in rolling things out, and the smaller guys are going to have the advantage in innovating at the beginning. So when I see these panels, I know that a lot of people here are kind of in the early phase of what they're doing. The same thing with OTT. So what our mission is on that side of the fence is to be innovative, right? And when you're innovative, a lot of times you're going counterculture to the data. I know everybody says, blah, 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 I'm going to do the other thing. I'm going to go to where the puck ain't. I'm going to zag instead of zig. So, my little speech philosophy for younger rooms is that innovation launched every single major category of movement in the history of media and the history of technology. And almost every founder, almost every producer started with the idea of people telling them no. So I just want a cautionary tale that genius doesn't come from data. Data takes genius and amplifies it.
Well, and that, just to add, and I couldn't agree more, it's the nature of subscription services. You want different audiences, not a numbers game, how big your ratings are. You want other type of subscribers, and you only get these other type of subscribers through innovation and other type of shows. And I think next to data and marketing and the right content is also how you position yourself, and how to differentiate yourself in this ocean of content, It reminds me the early days of cable, where it was very clear MTV is music and Discovery is documentaries. Then the lines were very blurred in television, that you have a lot of reality TV coming in, and you couldn't distinguish an MTV from an VH1 or other channels anymore. I think now, and that's true for TV and digital, you need to clearly position yourself. You can call it niche or something else, but you have to stand for something that the fan and the viewer and the consumer knows, okay, when I go there, I get this type of content, this type of quality, and that's important to me. I want to be part of that. So the positioning, I think, will be increasingly a big factor in all of this.
Great. Let's elaborate on that innovation topic a bit. So we talked a little about AVOD, SVOD, transactional-based video, TVOD. There's multiple business models in terms of innovation. There's technologies, there's platforms, content. I'm going to ask you guys to go kind of around the room here. Just give your opinions on where you see innovation and opportunities, and what are some of the ideas that you would suggest people explore.
Well, as a business, if you're a business person, you can make an incredible living with 100,000 subscribers to something, right? So that didn't exist. What many of the people on this panel have done is built platforms that let someone with 50,000, 20,000, 100,000 subscribers make an incredible living, and if you learn that, you can probably go to $500,000. And somewhere there's a ceiling, but if you're charging them $1 to $10 a month, you've changed the world. Now, YouTube sort of proved that in its own way, in its weird way. If you're a creator, my strongest advice is give it away as fast as you possibly can. Get it up and get it on the air, whatever the air is to you. Whatever channel you can get your content on, give it away, because if the spark ignites, you're going to have a line outside your door. So for the people who are in the early stage, I would say don't be ashamed of having a narrow niche. Understand what the technology guys can do for you. Launch your pay-per-view or your freemium benefits, and get out there and start marketing. And if you're a content creator, do everything you can to stop pitching something and start making something. Just make it, and give it away as fast as you can to get to the next one.
Great, thanks. Adam?
I would probably use a case study from a different industry, and I'll tie it back to this, because that's why we're here. I think of someone like Kayak. So Kayak came about almost as like a very nice, pleasant, unmonetizable platform that brokered a bunch of deals with people and said, let us just have access to your data, and we'll send people your way. We're going to be customer generation for you. And everybody who would be normally reticent to make such deals did, and most notably someone like Expedia, who would never normally allow that sort of access to their data. And quietly overnight, Kayak became a seriously large force with a lot of customer data that was very, very, very valuable to Expedia. So now they were too large to let they were too large for Expedia to say, okay, you can't have access anymore, because they were delivering so much revenue. So now, of course, they bought them. And I think there's something very similar that needs to happen, and not to harp on the one topic I've said over and over again, but going back to platform agnosticism, I think Apple's TV app is very intelligent, and it's a great idea, but because it is Apple, it is unable to broker the deal that is necessary to have a true infusion into Hulu, a true infusion into Netflix, a true infusion into Amazon. And I think someone needs to quietly go meet with those people and broker that deal to aggregate the data across all those platforms, and then make those people realize someday that they have too much audience data to get that data pulled and then get acquired by one of those companies. So that's what I would do if I was starting again.
Is that the question? If we were starting again, what would we do?
Yeah, it's
I have a very
greenfield environment.
I may pick a different panel. Yeah. No, we are, we have to keep going with our different business models that change from our linear lineage. We have to keep pushing the SVOD services, the direct to consumers. You've seen that with Filmstruck and Boomerang. You'll see it with more. You'll see it with sports. You'll see it with other content offerings that we have down the line. And we're in a unique position at Turner and Time Warner. We have a great family of content, everything from CNN to TBS, TNT to True TV to HBO to the Warner Brothers that we're working with a little bit, but I'm sure we'll do more. But we have to keep pushing the models, because if we don't keep pushing the models, we're done. We'll get cannibalized ourselves. So, we have to keep pushing those models and keep offering users content the way they want it. I'm not sure television linear maintains it forever. I think we have to continue to evolve.
Yeah. Great. Scott? Yeah, I was, again, this is very Nielsen-centric. I was going to offer that, we're placing some bets in some unusual areas. Our clients obviously want all of their platforms aggregated, and we provide a total content ratings number now that allows you to look at each platform and how it's performing as content moves from one platform to the next. That's key and important. We are utilizing the passive people meter technology that Arbitron put into operation many, many years ago, and we transported that over to TV now. So we're beginning to offer, and you've probably seen stories about this, out-of-home service that begins to quantify the viewing that's occurring in bars and restaurants and airports and things like that. And of course, our clients are looking for any incremental viewing that they can possibly get credit for. So we've launched that service. That was a big deal for us. We've also gone out and done arrangements with a number of providers, data providers in the industry to leverage return path data. So we've got a number of deals in place that allow us to begin to bring that data in and incorporate it and make use of it with the traditional Nielsen data. So I think that's kind of exciting turf for us. And the last thing I would mention is that if you attend the CES show, it's always fascinating to see what survives from year to year and what resonates. And the wearables area is certainly going to have a huge shakeout at some point, but there are going to be companies that survive and prosper. And so we've been developing technology to leverage some of the wearable and IoT infrastructure. So we think that there's an opportunity to use the wearable technology as beacons and so forth. Another mechanism to account for human traffic and exposures in the home and so forth. So very important areas of development for us.
Great, Rob.
Is the question, again, innovation, right?
Yeah, it's I was
I just
trying
want to
to
make sure we're back on that before I go way
I'm
off on
trying
a
to,
tangent.
but
here.
hey, you can go anywhere.
No,
I'm trying to
I got
tease
it.
out of you guys, for
Where's
the
it gonna
audience.
come from?
What do you guys see as the biggest innovation
Yeah,
opportunity?
my response to that is I think people who are entering the space, and even the big networks, should be embracing the niche audience. I mean, the barriers to entry now are so much lower than they used to be, and I think a lot of what's been said on the panel will hopefully echo this, although I welcome counter opinions. I think the reason Comcast, for example, starting a year ago, got an extra $10 a month out of me was because my kids wanted to watch Bundesliga and Serie A soccer. And actually, I'm really glad to hear you got a UEFA deal now. That's great. But my kids would never even, they don't even know they would not know what a television is if I didn't turn it on. They watch everything on their tablets and their phones, and they will be much more likely to download an app in the future. And when they have money, they'll pay for it to watch the Bundesliga game, to watch the Serie A game. And so I guess I'm coming around to saying that those niche providers are the future of where the revenue is going to be coming from. It's not going to be so much mass market driven, in my opinion.
Yeah, and also I'd like to add to this niche audience here in the US might be a massive audience globally, because it's a global tribe of people. We just still think in windowing in the traditional way, but this one Bundesliga fan multiplied by a lot of territories is a massive audience to cater against. So we have to keep that in mind.
And by the way, I want to add this. I was going to say this for your last question, but we may not get there. My theory, or my thesis, is that eventually everyone that's been cutting the cord to save money still needs an internet connection at home of some degree. And by the time they're done paying for these niche providers, they'll spend more in aggregate on a monthly basis. They won't know it because everyone's bill just sort of comes out of their Visa account now, but or everyone's TV, their Hulu and their Netflix subscription are transparent to them most days. You'll be spending more. So I think the good news for people in this room, content creators and networks, et cetera, is that the revenue will continue to come in.
Great. York?
Yeah, I think, I don't have the crystal ball, I might not be here if I would, but I think a lot has to do also with aggregation in the future. I think a la carte will be the future more and more, but then it will be, what I said earlier, quite confusing environment with way too many OTT SVOD services. Some might die, some might survive, but there will be a lot of them. And I think the company who starts to aggregating them again in a meaningful way, that exactly I know what I will get, will be on top of the pack. That's
Right.
my prediction.
Thank you. So I'm gonna do one final question, and it's sort of adjacent or similar to the one I just asked about innovation. So Rob doesn't have to answer if he doesn't want to. But and then I'm going to open it up to the audience. So we talked a lot about our perspectives on the future of television when we met ahead of time, and I think the general consensus was we were all fairly optimistic. We all thought there was a bright future, but a lot of work to do, obviously, across the board: content, distribution, technology. So I want to get from you kind of your bold prediction of what is something that's going to happen in the future that maybe we're not thinking about in terms of immediate term innovation, longer term, 5, 10 years out, something that you can shake your crystal ball at and come up with some ideas. We'll just throw it up to anyone who wants to jump in. There's no rhyme or reason to how we'll go about this. So, Jörg?
So I think social media will play a way bigger role, like Facebook TV, and engagement into content. We see it's in its infancy. We don't know where it goes today, but I think that's one big driver, I think, where the lines between consuming content and your life at home pretty much and your social life will be one. That's one prediction. The second, and there are many panels here at Digital Hollywood, I'm a big believer in virtual reality. Probably it's less an AR, more a VR topic. But there will be the future of TV in VR, that you just go into Westworld in consuming then a linear story somehow, if it's even possible.
Great. Anyone else want to add?
I'd just throw it out there too. We'll see what the crowd says, but personalized predictive content, depending on where you are as a person. I know when I get home what I like to see, and I'm prompted to watch it, either by a device or by my phone in my pocket. You can see if I like to watch the news, maybe my social life knows that I like to check out news things at 6 o'clock because that's when I historically watch the news. That maybe just comes on the television on my wall, but it's sent from my device because it knows where I am.
I just want to second that 100%.
Yeah.
I'm on the opposite of it. I think this is funny for me because I think that the greatest change in the future is serendipity. I think that things are going to find their way to you that you didn't expect, and I think that you're going to be looking at a screen of screens. You're going to be watching more than one thing at the same time, probably on the same device. That's a technology innovation. I think that format barriers are going to be completely destroyed. You'll watch a 2-minute thing and a 2-hour thing. I think that I think you will pay extra for things to find you that you would be afraid that you would miss if you were predictive. That's where I think the world is going. Things will find you.
And I think if I'm going to make a prediction, would have really 5 to 10 years taking that metric seriously, and if any credibility I did gain, I'm going to lose it with this statement, but so that's a nice way to do this. I like to speak in metaphors and analogies, but I think I go back to studios back in the day when you would watch a Paramount movie in a Paramount theater, and that was before Congress regulated that. And I think there will be, if we think 5 to 10 years ahead, I think the role of the network will be a completely different role. And if you follow the train of buying an album in the store, buying an album on iTunes, then moving to buying the single, and then to streaming, I do think there might be a world, when we talk about skinny bundles today, they're not particularly skinny. They're skinnier than they were, but they are not skinny bundles. I think there might eventually be a world where I'm not even just paying, I only want NBC and I only want CBS. I think there's a world where I'm only paying because I watch these 2 shows on CBS, these 3 shows on NBC. And I think the role of network as also distributor and owned channel, I think there's a decent enough chance will cease to exist in the same way. And I think it'll be more about actually the content you do watch, not some sort of curated network.
Great, thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. I'm going to open it up to questions from the audience now. Start with.
Yeah, hey, I wonder if you guys could talk a little bit about how you sort of see the CDN relationship, and then also with the ability to actually distribute the content in the back end, and then what do you guys think 5G is going to do to your ability content and the devices as it comes live?
Last part of that is.
CDN.
I really need you to be reliable as a CDN.
CDN and
That's-
5G.
Yeah, for the CDN part, I mean, you have to have content delivery, obviously. You have to be able to deliver to the broadest number of people as fast as possible. 5G will do nothing but speed that up. I don't know if 5G is going to be as fast as we have been led to believe it will. Just the engineering behind 5G and what it takes to get 5G to a pole in front of your house so you can actually use it. There are very few companies that are prepared to do that. I'll leave it at that. But I don't know if 5G is going to have the effect that we want it to in 5 years, perhaps 10, but it will speed up how fast we can get. And to the personalization part, as a personal device, I will know exactly where you are and can track certain things and deliver certain things to you, whether it be an advertising or a piece of content or something serendipitous too, that just maybe you want to check this out. It takes you down a path of different content. So,
Gentleman right here.
Yeah, more of a statement from a 5G point of view. We're looking at 2019 before the first devices really come out, before Ericsson and the networks put out their content. But there's a growing trend of the number of people, number of households who are cell phone only, meaning they don't even have that broadband connection they would refer to. So there's going to be a point where that younger generation, and I'm probably not included, although I might do it when it comes to that point, I will have a router in my home tied into that 5G system, so it's not wired. I don't have to put up with, I won't name what my cable provider is, and be able to get all that content into my home through that network. And I think it's going to go through more of the concrete, that it doesn't get signals get lost now. And we'll know really 2020, 2021 by the time devices catch up, by the time the networks catch up. I think right now 4G LTE is not quite at ubiquity yet. I think it's still in the low 90% range. Just more of a statement than a question.
There's 100 technologies, thousands of technologies that will speed up delivery. There's a complete aging radio infrastructure in the United States that could be completely repurposed to deliver broadband into a vehicle. There's nothing that is going to stop the absolute distribution of absolute bandwidth to absolutely everybody. And I think that the networks know this. I think it's the other part of the business: how fast, how soon, how much. But I don't think anyone's worried at all about the so-called ubiquity of bandwidth and availability. It is going to take there's a lot of guys big guys playing on that, but there's also some small innovative folks. Small ones will get gobbled up, and the big ones will take advantage, and we'll have it. I think sooner rather than later.
Great. This gentleman right here.
What are your thoughts on whether curators actually provide value by curating, or whether, as you say, Google and just simply serendipity will rule the day, particularly as thousands of people become filmmakers and content producers, GoPros, whatever the next generation is?
What you call curation, I call programming. So programming is a nasty word, because if you're talking to a tech guy, they're thinking it's programming. If you're talking to a media guy, they're thinking a different definition. I think that when you reach the point where looking for things to watch takes longer than you spend watching, for each individual person, that person will seek what you would call curation. So I think we're at that point of inflection. I built my first internet company in 1992, and in 1993 I cut a deal to put the Grammys online, which was kind of the first commercial use of the internet, I think in history. And in 1994, you pretty much knew every person who had any functionality on the internet. Then video hit, we went through it again. Then podcasting hit, which adds a little something to do with it, and we went through that again. It always starts with this: everybody sees everything at once, and then too much shit, as where we are, excuse my language, and then somebody comes in with the cleaver and cuts through the crap, and that is where, so serendipity and programming are not, disassociated. So if what networks do that is great, what even Netflix does that is great, it tells you to watch something. It says, you got to watch this. The process by which it tells you to watch something is driven by data, which all these gentlemen are talking about, and driven by exit studies and polls and personal interviews, but it's doubling down and telling you to watch. On YouTube, the YouTube mafia, the one young person to the other young person, they trade audiences back and forth. So I think we're already in a world where programming happens every day, and I think it'll just get slicker and maybe better.
Great. Thank you, guys. Any other questions?
The back.
The camera?
Scott, with the Nielsen thinking out the box, pun intended, going direct marketing now, sending cash to the consumer for the old-fashioned survey, how is this return on investment providing knowledge back to the Nielsen rating?
Well, when you say providing cash to the consumer, so in our panel-based measurement, when people agree to work with us and allow us to measure their devices and so forth, we compensate the homes. We don't think of it as paying the homes. We think of it as rewarding them for participation. And what we find is Nielsen is one of those companies, I mean, I think we're the leader in the world in terms of our cooperation rates, our ability to retain audiences and the subscribers that allow us to measure all their content. So that's huge. And it's also a big cost driver for our business because as we grow our panels, so too we're expanding our expense base on that score. So it's an expensive business, no question. We'd like to lower it, but we don't know how to do that.
Do you know how many of the letters are unopened for $2?
Oh, you're talking about the diary business? Oh my God, the diary business is gone, really. I mean, we're ending that, thankfully. And it's all electronic measurement going forward, or utilizing third-party sources that we have, arrangements with. But yes, the diary is being buried summarily. And I haven't heard any objections yet. It's amazing. But thank you for the question.
Great. Any additional questions? No? Gentlemen, anything else you'd like to add in closing remarks?
Still a hits business.
It's good story business.
It's a good story business.
It's a good time to be a creator.
Yeah.
Really good time to be a content creator.
Yeah.
Great. How are we on time, by the way? Amy, can you keep me honest? 20. Okay, so we got 20 minutes. Ooh, this is going to be a thinking on the fly exercise.
Yeah, there's a couple.
What projects are you all working on currently?
Good question.
The question was, what projects are you each working on currently, either for clients or your respective business?
We're rolling out. My philosophy was build a network because I wanted somebody to look at my stuff. So instead of having a pitch deck, as they do here in Hollywood, I decided to build a network. So to do that, you have to educate yourself. You have to have some technology. You got to decide what you want to build. You got to test the market. We kind of went through all of that. So we're rolling out the hardware and software side. That's going global. And then with great partners like some of the gentlemen here on this panel, we're trying to redefine what it means to have this network and get it properly measured. And then the third thing is content. And I think there we're producing what I call fast, free, and live, or the other end of what the other end of Netflix. The part that SVOD gives away is the stuff you kind of get for nothing. So I think for us, you're going to see a lot more innovation in the way technology reaches a screen, and we talked about that today, and then hopefully some innovation in the kind of content we put on it.
Adam?
Our clients are mainly the major media networks and studios, and then niche providers. So we have plenty of niche folks that we work with. A majority of our SVOD accounts that are American-based, a shocking amount all of a sudden, are very aggressively going into Europe and Asia. And so we've spent a lot of time basically repositioning a number of our networks to go into 80 territories overnight. And our Q1 is quite busy with basically that. We have a lot of these American SVOD, mainly SVOD, not AVOD, providers who will all of a sudden be global businesses because they've understood how to scale it in the US, and now they're thinking, well, let's go into France, let's go into Japan, let's go into. So that's a big chunk of what we are managing now.
The biggest thing I have is that this is going to sound very vague, but we're trying to reinvent storytelling and reinvent television and what it means to have content on multiple platforms wherever you are, however you want to watch it. You're not a cable subscriber, I'm going to find a way to get you Adult Swim. That's what I'm focused on, what we're focused on right now. It takes up a lot of time, but working with these folks across the board, from marketing to distribution to measurement, we're going to get there, and we feel pretty good about it. But the reimagining that storytelling process and that relationship with the customer, what does that mean?
Yeah. Scott?
I was going to say that obviously we're continuing to invest in our linear business, but we're also putting a ton of money into the digital business because, frankly, it's transitioning. We're in a big transition period. So a lot of markers there, a lot of work with the MRC, the IAB, a lot of effort into filtration practices because ad fraud is a huge phenomenon. And we need to be able to, as a company, filter out the invalid traffic, the robotic traffic and so forth, to make sure that what is being reported to the industry is in fact verifiable, sustainable, and accurate data and information. So because of the transactions that occur, that's a huge obligation on our part, and it's a huge requirement from that MRC group that I mentioned a bit earlier that actually is responsible for architecting many of the standards. So a lot of bets on the digital marketplace.
Yep.
I was going to say there was an article not too long ago that used this term that I really like called radical personalization, and the idea that everyone's experience is unique. Just like it's not by accident that Starwood is sending you Facebook ads or ads in your Facebook stream about their properties in Maui. A day after you've done a kayak search for flights to Maui. I mean, obviously that's how the advertising business has optimized itself, but the same will be true for content. It already is, but I think it is going to get better and better. We've talked about this a little bit already. But the idea that when I open, my app, when I open TBS, I'm going to see a very different experience than you'll see, Danny, right? Because we're watching different pieces of content. And I think that that's not necessarily new tech, but it's not necessarily being exploited yet to its fullest.
Yeah, good point. York?
Yeah, in my world, I'm heading up development and production of the Machinima Studio for premium content. So the Transformers keep me quite busy working on part 2. I hope you saw Combiner Wars on Verizon Go 90. We will have a bigger version, 110 minutes of Titan's Return, coming to Verizon as well soon this year. I hope, knock on wood, if we're on time in delivering, but we are. As we produce that with Tatsunoko in Japan, actually an animation house and in-house at Machinima, and there will be a part 3, so quite a lot of content. We just delivered a show, and we're very proud of it, in the esports arena called Chasing the Cup, Injustice 2 for the CW network. So there's a TV special on the CW network and on CW Seed and Machinima network, digital episodes leading pretty much. And that's our philosophy, that if we have a premium show, there should be also, I just say the probably bad word content marketing, what Red Bull invented, but we always try to lead with other type of innovative content leading to the main show, to really engage into the audience, and then say there is a premium show as well, why didn't you check it out? So we're always working parallel with our network, with our influencers, and with our own channels next to premium content, so it keeps us quite busy.
Yeah, and I'll chime in too, just with some of my work as well. So I spend a lot of time working with various marketing organizations within the companies that I serve, so within home entertainment, theatrical, or even TV programmers or cable programmers, networks, looking at kind of the blocking and tackling of data. So we talked a lot about data, but a lot of the data that they're collecting now is a direct-to-consumer business, or having this first touch point with a customer that they traditionally haven't had that relationship with, managing that data, doing the data plumbing, getting all the data connected, being able to action that data either through in-app personalization or direct omni-channel marketing communications, email, push, SMS, having all that managed inside the enterprise, and then more importantly, building the operations and the skills to run that is where I'm spending 1,000% of my time. Every one of my customers is struggling with that. A couple new questions. Gentleman in the back, the left, my left.
What's your biggest problem that you're trying to solve as soon as possible?
I think
increased ad sales. We're not. Yeah, we just have to more fully capitalize ad sales for us and in monetizing that content. Yeah, using his data.
Yeah.
I would say changing landscape, you know, sometimes on a weekly basis, programming strategies change of SVOD, OTT services, AVOD services, other platforms, specifically in the digital space, sometimes even television, cable TV. So it's constantly changing because the platforms try to figure out what is my sweet spot in terms of length of content, budgets, production budgets, value, which audience do I cater to, and to catch up, but also be relevant for each platform, to really target your content to the platform. As you can imagine, a Snapchat show or a show for mobile first looks dramatically different than for a bigger screen. So you have to be agnostic to these different platforms. So to catch up on a constant basis what type of content is required is a challenge.
Great. I saw one more hand up over here.
One project, concept, or idea that you guys have had internally in your companies that everybody was calling you crazy for, that you always wanted to explore, but you just haven't had the opportunity through resources, or people just think you're
You stunned them.
I'm a little bit of a startup guy, so everything needs more resources. I think talent that we could produce 10 times as much with the right small addition in talent. We could distribute technically. I mean, we're pretty innovative on that, but we could go globally 3 times as fast with a little extra talent. So I think retaining, as a person who runs businesses that scale pretty dramatically, I think it's the biggest sort of challenge and opportunity is retaining the culture of your own business while you scale to these like lofty heights. I mean, culture, you could see it today. Everything you read about has something to do with a decaying culture in somebody's business. So for us, it's talent and fortitude in retaining the culture of the business.
I would hire multiple people to simply stand outside of Amazon and Apple and harass them to give better transparency of data. What Facebook and Google excel at in terms of transparency on performance, Apple and Amazon to this point have no incentive to do that in any capacity, and I think Apple's probably 10% better than Amazon. Amazon is a walled garden. For OTT and streaming, Amazon is an incredibly valuable partner globally, can drive so many subscriptions, and if you want an ounce of data on who that person is, you don't have it. So I would just hire a team of people to harass Amazon and Apple. That's what I would do.
Anyone else?
I'm going to pass.
Rob? Barry? Anyone else?
I was actually I've combined both questions now in my mind into one answer. I was going to say to the prior question, then I'll come back to the most recent one if I remember what it is. That ROI is the thing that is most important to us, and helping our clients demonstrate ROI as quickly as possible. Either because it's a big conglomerate like a Turner, and they have to show ad sale increases or new subscriptions, or because you're a startup like a few of us on the panel, and if you don't show revenue, you either have to go back to the well and raise venture capital, or you're out of business. So, to your point about the 1,000% of your time right now, the fact is there's a lot of testing you can do. You can A/B test a lot of these scenarios and see what works and what doesn't, and you can get real-time feedback, and that's what technology like Swerve is really for. So the good news is you have the data, but then you've got to actually have people and talent, like we're talking about, that know what to do with it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a challenge.
Great. So I think I'll try to do one final question. Anyone in the audience have one last question, and then we'll break? Lady in the back.
So when you guys are leading your countries, not your countries, your companies, to
Or countries.
to the future, and you're using your crystal balls, what has been like a really good source that you guys are like, you know what, this has led me in the past in a good direction, that this is going to really hold true for me? What do you feel is really giving you that? What do you look to kind of give you those answers for your future to try? You feel like it's going to have a really good footprint. Like if I was going to be a stock, I know it's going to bond or talk
I have to ground it in the story. If it's a story and I like the story, and that's a story of a product, or that's a story on air, or that's a story on streaming, or whatever, if it's a good story, if I can really relate to that story, or even enjoy that story, that's what I go back to. That sounds very up in the air, but that is really what it is. If we're telling a good story, a lot of other things fall in line pretty quickly.
Yeah, I just want to add, it's funny that you say that, because I could answer with a boring answer like leadership and God knows. But I had the same feeling. The reason why I'm at Machinima is really because I'm passionate about gaming and the immersiveness of games. No, I'm not a competitive gamer. These kids kill me. My kids kill me right there, you know, if I'm in a shooter or something. But I love this getting lost in these type of worlds. And I'm a true believer, and I'm passionate that game culture will be the next pop culture, probably after comics, after this big phenomenon. And without this passion that you say, I believe in that, and the story is not told yet, what comes back to storytelling. There were some experiments, call it, on the big screen, and some vanity project. But digital and television brings you so much more time to evolve the characters, to really do justice to games, for example, video games, this immersiveness of games, than the big screen, for example, and that still has to be tested, and that's why I'm where I am right now. So it's really driven by passion at the very end.
I'm on a very different end of the business. We don't create the stories, we market the stories, but perfect, good, series involved. For me, I think the best way for us to, and I truly mean this sounds trite or something, there's nothing more valuable than figuring out, if you're in a meeting, who you think is the smartest, most innovative person in the room, forming a relationship and taking them to drinks and having a truly off-the-record conversation where people feel comfortable to actually exchange ideas and talk about the struggles they're having. And I think getting past that immediate wall of what organizations put forth and what the real struggles are, that's what we have found. I mean, talking to a really smart person who's innovative and listening to them talk about what they're faced with over a drink when they're comfortable to talk about it is, for us, been the most valuable thing. So, serendipity.
For me, two things. One, show respect. The respect that you show when you're going to build a business or follow a dream is to become an expert and to do your homework and understand what it is you're talking about. So number one is, be prepared. And then number two, Gordon Moore's law at Intel was this theorem or this law that talked about how every period of time the capability of a processor to do more processing would increase. So I have an entrepreneur's law I call Fart's law, and Fart's law says the potential likelihood that your idea will succeed increases exponentially based on the number of old farts who refuse to endorse it. So if you can find a core group of people who think they know everything and say that you're in the wrong direction, that's, in my opinion, the right direction. And I'm an older guy who's built quite a few companies, and that is, including the one I'm in now, has been 100% true for me. So Fart's law.
And that is a good closing note right there. So thank you. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, panelists.